Hello, this is Alex Duenas, and you are now entering the DT2510 Advanced CAD Methods zone. So anyway, this is the lecture series now online for those of you who miss the lectures. Okay, so this is Advanced CAD Methods, and what we're going to do in Advanced CAD Methods is just as the title infers, just go beyond the basics that you learned in DT 1230, and we're going to also explore areas in which weren't necessarily covered in 1230, but really can enhance your productivity. And I'm talking about creating intelligent blocks and XREFing, things like that. So anyway, this week's lesson covers chapters 8, 9, and I believe 16. Yeah, so they kind of jump around. And most of this has to do with plotting. So if you think about plotting, you think about that it's really kind of the most important end of the drafting pipeline, because you can make the best design in the world, but if you can't get it plotted and delivered to the manufacturer, then it does you no good at all. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to cover plotting scales, and model space. We're going to look at the differences between color-based and style-based plotting, or named-based plotting. We're going to take a look at creating paper space and putting in our title blocks in the paper space. We're going to save our page setups. Page setups are set up so that you only have to assign the plotter and its definitions once, and then you can just always invoke it by selecting it. We're going to then also scale the drawing and the viewports to their proper graphic scale, something we haven't been doing. And we're going to also learn how to plot our drawings from the viewport windows and from the layouts as well, the model space. Okay, so with that, let's get going. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at plotting our plans, okay, and taking a look at the plot interface menu. All right, now one of the things I did for you guys is I went ahead and placed the master files, all the drawing files, on your Dropbox accounts. Okay, so if you take a look, I'm going to zoom up there. See, here's my Dropbox account, Advanced CAD Methods, and you have an inbox and an outbox. The inbox and the outbox are for me and you to communicate. So when you post drawings up, post them in my inbox, and I will post the drawings going out to you in my outbox. Okay, so everything's relative to me. My outbox goes to you, in my inbox comes to me. Okay, so let's take a look at the project files. And if we go to week 1, we'll see that there's 2 folders. There's a mastering AutoCAD files. Those are the files from your textbook, which you happen to have a CD in the back of the book anyway, so you can always access them that way. But I made it a little convenient. I posted only the drawings that you will absolutely need. Also, we'll have the class exercise files. These are the files that you will use, modify, and submit to me. Okay, so these are the submittals. These are just your basic playing around kind of tutorial kind of files. So these you will not hand back into me, but the files that are posted in the class exercises you will. Okay, hopefully that's clear. Let's see. Let's go ahead and close that out. Okay, so I went ahead and opened up the plan drawing, and we're going to take a look at plotting this drawing. Now, one of the items that we really haven't been stressing is that is a different line work and the way that line work is interpreted. Let me give you an example. If I was looking at a professional plot of this, I would see that the outside lines were a little bolder than some of the elements on the inside. So this might be just a hair lighter, and the door might be bold, just kind of depending on the convention of your employer. And usually with this is an architectural drawing, so usually with an architectural drawing there's a convention that they already use. Now notice that the drawing has multicolors. Okay, they're multicolors for 2 reasons. One is so the designer can differentiate between different elements. So I can see, okay, these are green are wall, blue are furnishings, red are doors, windows might be this magenta color up here. Okay, they have that purpose. The secondary purpose, and probably the most important, is that if you use color-based plotting, the pan configuration shown in the color-based plotting will dictate that this line work be of a different line weight quality, a contrasting line weight. So these walls will probably be a little bolder than the furnishings on the inside, and probably be bolder as well as the windows. So you have line weight control all dictated by the color settings. Okay, so now let's take a look at our plotting window. If I go up here and I say print, AutoCAD will display now this window. Okay, this is a plotting model window. Okay, now typically this is what you first initially see. Okay, when you first open AutoCAD, if you're at a new computer station, you'll probably get this window. So what I want you to always do is go in here and click that window. So this is what you want to see all the time. Okay, you want to see this expanded window. Okay, so now let's take a look at what our window tells us. Okay, under the page setup, you notice that there's none indicated here, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, the printer that we're talking about. Now, typically you're going to choose the Hewlett-Packard large scale printer upstairs in lab 4. Now that's on a typical larger plot, but for handing in homework you've just been selecting the smaller Dell black and white printers, which is okay for just submitting small stuff. But I guess the big push now is to get you to plot as much as possible. Employers want you to hit the pavement running relative to being able to plot. So that's kind of what this portion of the advanced CAD methods is all about. So let's take a look at these, continue taking a look at these menu items. Okay, again, so what we want to do is we want to select the printer. But since I don't have a Hewlett-Packard here at home, and this is where I'm doing the tutorial, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose this Adobe PDF. But if you take a look here in the list, you see that I have my Epson printer here, and then there's a fax and these other PDF report writers, and if I had other printers connected, my Windows control panel or the Windows would control those printers and they would show up here. Back in the old days, we'd have to use a printer support file, which was I can't remember what the extension is, but we would actually have to load a separate printer driver for whatever we were doing. So Windows would maintain one and AutoCAD would maintain a different driver. Now things are all uniform and we only have one driver, which is kind of convenient. Okay, but in this case we're going to use the Adobe PDF. We're going to simulate a plotter. Okay, so once we choose our plotter, we go down here, plot to file. Now plot to file used to be an old system we used to use, but now that we have Adobe PDFs, we just print a PDF and then send it to the client. But if we wanted to plot a file, we would invoke this and it would send a drawing in plot format with the extension PLT. Now the problem with those results were kind of unpredictable. We never knew what we were going to get. Okay, so that's kind of gone away. Okay, paper size. Okay, if we invoke that, we notice that we have a myriad of paper sizes. We have everything that you might need, and notice that because I chose the Adobe PDF, I have the larger sizes available. If you only had, say, one of the smaller Dell printers, or even my Epson, I'd only have 8.5 by 11 available. Maybe 11 or 8.5 by 14, but that would be it. Okay, so that's the paper size. Okay, what area to plot? In this case, I'm in model space, and you can tell that by the icon here. So I can tell it plot the whole display, but I don't necessarily want that right now. I want typically either a window or an extents. That's typically what I want, and I'll explain why extents is probably the most valuable, but that's when we get to plot in paper space. But in this case, I'm going to say plot window. Typically, if you're plotting in model space, tile mode 1, you want to use window. Okay. Now, since I selected my window, let me talk about these offsets right here. The offsets, if I notice that if I'm plotting this on a pre-printed format, which we will do in class, and I'm not exactly centered up, I don't have to reconfigure. I might just have to just tweak it a little bit by putting an offset in, maybe a couple inches up, a couple inches to the right, you know, or whatever I have to do. Or I can just center the plot. I think this is what everybody's been doing right now. In this case, I haven't chosen a letter size, but I'm going to choose, I'm just going to back up a little bit. I'm going to go to an architectural D size, okay? And I'm going to change my fit to paper. That's kind of cheating, but I'm going to fit to paper. This kind of fits it in there. Now let's take a look at my preview here. And notice the annotation scale is not equal to the plot scale, and we'll talk about that. That has to do with the plotting of your text. Okay, now all of a sudden my preview shows me that I have this. It's not too bad. It looks like I got it all in there. It all fit in the architectural D. But if I come back here, I take a look here at the scale, the units, and I notice that it's 61.24. It's a little bit wacky. So I want some nice round units, like if I was in civil, it's 1 inch equals 40, 1 inch equals 20, or something in the effect of 1 inch equals 96, 48 in surveyors. I'm sorry, not surveyors, in architects units, because architects draw things in 1 inch equals 1 foot in inch increments. Hopefully that wasn't confusing. But anyway, so what we're going to have to do is a little bit of math in order to figure out what the correct size is. So let me cancel this. And let me type DI for distance. Oops, didn't take it. DI. Click from here to here. And I end up with about 158, 159 feet. So with that said, if I use the expression, like if I'm like experimenting, 1/4 of an inch equals a foot. Remember in DT 1230, I mentioned that the front part of that equation, the 1/4 of an inch, that side of the equation has to be 1 inch. So I have to multiply the back side by 4, actually by 48, because it's 4 feet times 12 inches per foot. I'll run through that again. Hopefully I'm not going to confuse you. Anyway, so if I'm just experimenting with 1/4 of an inch equals a foot, I will type 4 feet times 12 inches. Okay, and that, oops, need to invoke the calc command. 12 times 4 times 12, 48 inches. Okay, so my ratio in plotting will be 1/48, 1 to 48. Okay, now before we go off and go back into the plotting world there, let's go ahead and calculate if I was working on 1/8 of an inch. So 8 times 12, and that would be, forgot that again, 8 times 12, and that would be 96. Okay, so the two numbers I'm working with are 48 and 96. Okay, so let's go back to plot and take a look at the scale down here. So let's say the first number we were dealing with is 48. Now I notice immediately there's a problem there, because that 48 is smaller than 62. So with that said, I know that my plot is not going to look correct. Okay, so I have my windows set up, I have my scale set up, my guess scale. So let's take a look at the preview. Okay, again, my error. Yep, notice it doesn't fit. Okay, so that scale is off. Okay, let's escape. Go back to the plotting window. Let's try 96. Remember, 96 is 8 times 12. Okay, and let's say preview. Oh, that's going to look nice in my drawing there. Okay, so that is the scale. 1 inch equals 48. Okay, let's escape here and continue looking at this menu. All right, so now that we have our scale correct, now let's recap a little bit what we've done up to this point. Okay, so we've gone ahead and set up our plotter. we've gone ahead and set our sheet up, which is a 22 by 34. We've selected this particular window to plot, and we've centered our plot. We've made no adjustments. It's calculated my adjustment for me. We have taken off fit to paper because we're plotting exactly now. And we've calculated that our drawing is a 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. So again, we take the 1/8, we take the 8 out of the 1/8 and multiply it by 12, and that's how we get the 96. Okay, so that's how we figure out what our plotting scale is going to be. All right, let's take the CTB file here. We won't talk about that till a little bit later, but I want you to be aware that this is what defines the line weights and the line styles per these colors. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's see, shade plot as displayed. Since we really don't do any shading in 2D drafting, we can just leave that alone. Quality is normal, but we can go presentation, maximum, etc. But typically we just stay on normal unless there's a real problem. Plot options. Okay, we can plot in the background, which I would recommend never do because it just takes forever. So avoid that one. Plot object line weights. Okay, so if you have line weights dictated, you want to go ahead and invoke that. Okay. Plot transparency. Specify whether object transparency is plotted. This option should be used only when plotting drawings with transparent objects. Okay, so not sure what this one does, but I know that with some line work we can adjust its transparency. Maybe that toggles it on or off. Not sure. I have to experiment with that a little bit. But anyway, let's see, plot with plot styles, and that's what you're going to do because here's your plot style up here, or you can just totally override that. And plot stamp on. Now, if you want the date to appear somewhere in your drawing, you can go ahead and invoke this plot with a plot stamp. What AutoCAD will do is put the date and the drawing name here somewhere, and always on the left-hand corner, I think, of your drawing, regardless of how you plot this. It will always appear here in the left-hand corner, so that way you always know what drawing you've been working on. Let's see, drawing orientation, and here's where you set either portrait or landscape or upside down. Okay, and there would be occasions where you need to change that, especially if your drawing was mostly vertical, then you'd go to portrait. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and go say OK, and up comes this window. Okay, so now PDF is telling me now where to save my PDF, so I'm going to go ahead and save this up onto my desktop, and I'm just going to save it anywhere. Plan model dash or parent 1, say save, and there we go. Okay, so unfortunately I have to minimize my window here, which it doesn't want to do. Okay, got my PDF to behave. All right, here it is. Right, so now notice that my drawing's the right size, plotted okay, and all the plots, all the line works in color, but you know how this is going to plot on our black and white printer. It's going to look kind of funky. So what we want to do is go in here and adjust the plot styles so that these this line work will appear correct. But also notice that my drawing is in a portrait position, but yet it's plotted landscape. So AutoCAD forced it to plot landscape, but because of the AutoCAD driver, I'm sorry, the PDF driver, that plotted my drawing vertically in a portrait. So it's kind of like half good, half bad. So anyway, you can always adjust that by going back into the PDF plotter configuration and rotate that to landscape. And I'll do that in a little bit. Okay, so what we did was we went ahead and plotted in model view here, but now we want to plot the normal way, the new normal, and that is plotting through the layout tabs here. And now remember that we were in model space, which was tile mode 1. We are now in tile mode 0, which is the new way. It's the new way is the old way. It's been around for a while, but there are some that still plot in model, and for the life of me, I don't know why. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and set up the sheet to plot in the Layout tab. But first of all, we need to invoke we need to bring in a formatted sheet. So let's go ahead and hit New. We're going to go up here to Sheet Sets, and we're looking at the Architectural Template Imperial. Okay, say yes, and it pops it in there. Okay, what we want to do is we want to now get this drawing over to our drawing. So what I want to do is Control A for selecting all the elements of my drawing, Control C for copy, Control Tab to navigate back to that particular drawing. I want to Control V now for pasting, and I'm going to use 0, 0 as my insertion point. Okay, so there we go. And if I remember right, this is a 24 by 36 inch drawing. All right. Okay, so now I've expanded my M view, which is up here. And now I have my picture sitting right here on the lower left. Now I need to center that up. So type model space so that I can open up a window here. We're going to get into model space, paper space in a little bit. Okay, we're going to go ahead and center it up. And I can just kind of scroll in and kind of make up my own scale. But notice that as I scroll in and out, these numbers change down here. So I go in, notice. Okay, so I need to plot according to some particular scale. Now remember, when I plot it using 1 to 96 ratio, my plot looked fairly similar to this. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to come in here and I want to choose, and I calculated 1 inch, I'm sorry, what was it, 1/8 of an inch equals 1 foot, or ratio 1 to 40 and 1 to 96. So what I want to choose is I want to choose 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. Okay, and bam, okay, it just sets my my plot size correctly. In order to protect my plot size so that I don't change it accidentally by zooming in and out like this, see, now I've lost it. I got to go back and I got to do that again. 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. I can lock it by using the little lock button right there. Okay, now it's locked. Now when I scroll in and out, I'm scrolling the paper space, and so it's locked. Okay, so I'm good there. Another thing I want to tell you about is typically you always want to hide your MView windows. So I invoke the layer manager here, and I can't get it to behave. I want to get it down. There we go. Okay, I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call it MView. Okay, and I'm going to I'm not going to turn it off, but all I'm going to do is turn off its plottability. Okay, so it will never plot. And also maybe want to change its color to something really dark. Okay. Okay, now in order to change this MView window to that layer, is I have to type, go back to paper space, select it, and right click, go to properties. This is probably the easiest way. Properties window comes up, and I come up here to layer, and I change that to MView. Okay, close that out. Now it's that dark gray color, and it's guaranteed never to plot. All right, so now I've selected. If I double click into my MView window, notice I'm back in model space, paper space, model space, paper space. Okay, go back into model space. Note I check my scale, I'm okay. Then I come back over here and I back in paper space. Now I'm going to go ahead and plot again. And if I invoke PLOT, that's normally the way I plot, is I notice that my plotter configuration stuff has gone away. What happened? Well, that's because we went from one space to another, model space to paper space. So we have to do this all over again. Okay, but rather than going through this configuration here, I'm going to show you a different way, a little more permanent way. So let's go ahead and X this out. Okay, now what I want you to do is come back in here, go to, you know, I never like, okay, let's go to publish. Nope, let me print. I want to go to the manage plot styles. Nope. Manage plotters. Nope, that's not what I want. You know what? I never remember where it's at. I'm going to go here. Open this menu, show menu bar, one we should always have open. Go File, And if I go File, I want to go to Page Setup Manager. Okay, this window will appear. Okay, so what you can do is you can create a new page setup, and I'm going to call this one. And let's say I work for LART Engineering. Okay, and I don't know, I just made that up. Say OK. OK. There we go. There we go. Okay, go back here. I set my PDF plotter to be my default plotter. I choose letter size. I choose layout. Remember when we plotted in ModelSpace, I used windows. In this case, in Paperspace, I'm going to use extents. There's a reason I'm going to use that. Okay, here under center of the plot, I'm going to go ahead and invoke that. I am not going to use fit to paper if I plot to the big plotter. If I plot to the smaller plotters, I will invoke that. Okay, I'm going to use, here's what's different. I don't have to choose a funky scale. I choose 1 to 1. When you plot on the larger plotter, you always plot 1 to 1. Okay, go back over here. AutoCAD is my CTB for the meantime. I'm going to go ahead and keep that. And I'm just going to keep all these other defaults, including the landscape. Okay, and I say OK. I think I'm OK there. Okay, notice that now I have this LART Engineering. Okay, I'm going to close that. Now if I go to plot, notice that nothing's been set. Didn't I just set it? Nah, you got to go invoke it now. Go here, choose LART Engineering, and bam, all these change. Okay, the one thing I did not do, I'm going to go back to the plot setup manager, is the one thing I didn't do is I didn't change the paper size. So now my paper size is ArcD 24 by 36. It's centered. It's 1 to 1. Notice I have no red warnings. I'm OK. Okay, close. Now let's type plot again. I can come in here, choose LART plotting, and I can preview, and it should look OK. Yeah, except for the colors, I'm OK. Okay, so that's kind of let me review chapter 8 and make sure that I covered everything, but that's basically the crux of chapter 8. Let me check here. Okay, a couple of things that I wanted to mention before I exited this. Let me go ahead and escape from there. Let's go ahead and let's talk about the centering of the plot. Let's say for some reason my plots aren't centering up. Remember I mentioned this in when we were plotting in ModelSpace. If I disinvoke the center of the plot, I can go ahead and change my plot location at plot style rather than having to select a new window. So let me give you an example. So if this corner is not plotting correctly right here, if it's too low, I can increase that offset by a particular amount. And let's increase it by 1. Okay. And let's go here. I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to go back into preview. And notice that the plotter's now jogged my drawing up by 1 inch right here. Okay, it's no longer plotting correctly. Okay. So that's what the offset will do for you. Okay, I've escaped out of the PDF and I want to go back and change my offset. I'm just going to go ahead and, if you want this to go back to your original value, hit center of the plot and it recalculates. AutoCAD recalculates. Okay, pretty much we're done here. I'm just going to go ahead and cancel because I don't want to create another PDF. Well, maybe I will. Okay, let me just go ahead and say OK. And go back to desktop, save. Okay, so here's my new PDF with my new border. Okay, so let me kill that. Cancel, close program. Okay. Okay, so what we've learned is we've learned how to set up our plotter for plotting on a large format. You've been plotting onto the smaller formats, correct? Okay. So, but now I'm teaching you now how to plot to the larger formats. And when we get to the lab, I'll show you guys how to feed in not the roll stock, but the individual cut sheets so that you can plot your your drawings more accurately and to the larger size. Just think of it in this terms. This quarter goal is to plot and do some more plotting. Okay, so hopefully this helped out. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move into chapter 19 now, which is a little bit more on the CTBs, the plot pen styles.